Good afternoon. The sun's shining today, but it's a bit cold. That's why I've got my coat on. And this is an interesting hawthorn. And I don't know if you've seen one of these before. This is called they call it a trunk bender or a branch bender. I think it's a branch bender, something like that. I got it in a bonsai kit that I was given. And handy little tool. So basically, it does what it says on the tin. It bends branches, or in this case, trunks. So my idea with this hawthorn was obviously to crank the trunk over. I used a couple of pieces of 5mm wire. That just didn't do it. I ended up using this piece of, I think this is 3mm wire, to then sort of crank that in, and it worked a treat. But I had a big flat spot in the centre, and so I used my branch bender, and this has been in place for about four or 5 months or something. I'm going to take it off today. So it's fairly obvious. It's got two hooks that wrap round, and this one that pushes, and as you turn the handle and push this one in, it bends the branch or the trunk. So wow, that is tight. I remember I really had to crank on this. As I say, this has been in place since last year, so probably a bit long really in hindsight. It's definitely scarred the inside of there, but not too bad. I thought it would be worse than that. So you can see here where it was touching, but actually that's not really done any damage, if I'm honest. I'm going to now remove this wire and see if there's any scarring. So with my gym pliers, I'll just uncoil this. There's no damage there. But there is some minor marks. I mean, at the very early stage this, and this is the perfect time to remove the wire. I heard someone answer a question once, and the question was, what's the perfect time to remove the wire on a bonsai tree? And their answer was a day before it marks. And that's not far off what I'm getting here. And that's not far off this. There's really hardly any marks, if any at all, really. And the real purpose of this wire was to support the trunk as I bent it. So as I was really leaning over on the tree to hook this in, this wire was really supporting that. So it's done a great job. So that's that piece gone. And this other piece appears to be driven down into the soil below. And this is a slightly longer piece as well, so it's a bit more awkward. And the majority of the tension that's holding this down is this wire. So part of me is saying leave the wire on, part of me is saying have a look and see where this tree will shape itself without that wire holding it. So for the sake of experimentation, I'm going to take a look. So we can see quite nicely the curve. I've positioned it in the frame so that this is coming nearest to the top of the frame, and hopefully when I take this wire off, this doesn't just go bang back up, but we'll see in a few seconds. Right, here we go. Oh. Up it goes. But not too bad. Not too bad. I still quite like the shape of that. Obviously it has moved up, but I think that's got a nice curve to it still, and there's nothing to stop me now pulling that back down without the aluminium wire in place holding the trunk, because it's not in danger of snapping anymore. So this wire now goes down through there, and all I can now have to do is pull this down and twist this around. Easy. The reason I didn't do this originally was because this tree wasn't solid enough in the pot, and I think it would have just ripped it out of the pot. But now that the roots have had a chance to settle, I think this is going to be okay. But we'll see in a minute. So there we go. The wire's off. The wire's been removed. There's no scarring. Branch wise, there's some new branch growth, some old stuff. None of it's quite thick enough to wire yet, but there's plenty of things happening around here. And all this foliage on top is going to power growth down into the trunk. So I'm happy with this now. This stays as it is, and I don't need to worry about scarring. I know hawthorn, people love the old crusty, gnarled trunks, but I also quite like the sort of shiny, almost a bit like a beech when it's like this, the shininess of it. And I think it might be, well, it'd certainly be more interesting like this than it would have been just a straight tree. So yeah, I'll just leave that for the year now, let that grow, and probably chop it possibly next spring or in the winter. We'll see. Anyway, just a quick one again, showing you what I'm up to in the garden. Thanks for joining me.